Sri Lanka is one united nation again and fast on its path to a new future. A future for which a generation of Sri Lankans have paid for dearly, some with the ultimate sacrifice. The Sri Lanka Rupawahini Corporation, being the premier television network in Sri Lanka, considered it our duty to be actively involved in the formulation of that future. Thus, we bring you Checkmate, the stories of some extraordinary people who have gone that extra mile, set out that extra hour to achieve success in very ordinary circumstances, so that you too may be encouraged to aspire for such greatness. Checkmate, a new Sri Lanka, together we can. Good evening and welcome to another program of Checkmate. Once again, as we meet you, it is indeed our privilege and honor to thank you, all our viewers who have continuously been with Checkmate, and as my production team informs me, Checkmate viewership and our ratings have been climbing, and we take very humble pride in what you have been contributing to. It appears that the building of a new Sri Lanka and the Checkmate ethos is something close to your heart, as indeed it is to us. So on behalf of the production team, thank you very much for being with Checkmate. And as you know, on Checkmate, it is our fundamental ethos that we discuss with you, the building or forging ahead of a new Sri Lanka with this new advent, with this new future that we've been given pursuant to 30 years of a cancerous conflict. And we've been discussing several areas of public policy, of government, and today, once again, it is our distinct privilege and honor to have that creme de la creme that makes it on the Checkmate guest list. Our production team takes meticulous care in picking our guests, as you know by now, and today we're going to talk of something that's very close to a lot of us, indeed the talk of the town these days, which is about the Sinhalese, the Sinhala race, the Sinhalese culture, its intermingling with the Sri Lankan history, our past, our glorious past, going back to the days of our kings. And you're going to have an enthralling and wonderful program of Checkmate in the company of our guest. Now, our guest tonight is indeed a privilege and an honor to have with us in the studio. He's a graduate of the University of Ceylon, then Peradeniya, later a Fulbright scholar to California at Berkeley. He read for a master's in linguistics. He has a PhD from Colombo and remains an emeritus professor and is a leading author of the Sinhala language and was also a Sri Lankan ambassador to Thailand. I'm sure you know who I'm speaking of. And of course, on a personal note, we have fond memories of him in our days in the University of Colombo, as he was then the head of the department, the little department that we had made for ourselves of journalism. And it is indeed our privilege and honor, sir, to welcome Deshamanya, Professor J.B. Dissanayaka, to Checkmate. Hi, Bon, sir, welcome.
Hi, Bon, thank you very much.
Sir, we start all our stories at the advent of our guest. A little bit, if you may, if you like, of your childhood, of your family.
Well, I was born 75 years ago. That's in 1937. That tells me how old I am.
You've carried away gracefully.
Reaching my second childhood, as you may say. So, in a kind of Candian village of Kagal, it's called Puak Mote, very unusual name. There are only few villages with which ends in Mote. Puak Mote, Talgas Mote, Puhul Mote, like one of those very few rare villages, Puak Mote. But I'm very proud there is adjoining a village called Padavigampala, which has the oldest prehistoric monument in Sri Lanka. It's called a dolmen. Dolmen is a stone structure, like a box, where a man can stand inside. And that's called a dolmen. It's reserved by the archaeology department because it's the oldest monument that we have of the Stone Age. So my relations were there, the Stone Age people were there, so I claim that I also come from the Stone Age.
And you had your initial education at Dharmaraja before you came to Anand?
I had 1 year in my own village school.
Right.
Just went there for fun of it.
Yeah.
My eldest brother was at Dharmaraja at that time, so he took me to Dharmaraja.
Right.
And when he moved to Colombo to study law, again my eldest brother joined the law college like you. So he brought me to Colombo. So I had my first 3 years at Dharmaraja. Then I came to Anand in 1947, where I was remained there for another 10 years until 1957, when I entered the University of Ceylon, Peradeniya.
So now, before we get into your actual area of expertise, I'm sure all of us or most of us who are watching know, but I don't really know whether any of us, indeed even we as being your students, didn't realize until we were going through the glossary as to exactly how many volumes of material you've written. But I'll probably just mention some of the areas that you've written on languages and linguistics in Sinhala, then on culture, on now you've gone on to children's books. So a quick word from, say, if not all, at least some of those books that come to your memory.
Well, my first book was in Sinhala on linguistics. It's a new subject. So my own teacher, Professor Sugatapali Silva, wrote the very first book called Bhasha Vimarshana, and followed by my book called Bhashavaka Rata Samudaya, that we all believe that language is nothing but a set of patterns. So what are these patterns? So that's what we look for as linguists. So I had an introduction in Sinhala, my first book, to say that language is a set of patterns, followed by another book called Bhaviteha Vigraha, that is how you look at language, its usage and analysis. So my first books are on linguistics in Sinhala.
So can I just ask you, linguistics, as we know, is a science. You describe it as such, even in where you are described, your profiles are given. Linguistics is a science, and it was earlier called philology. A little bit about this area. So because most people identify you as a professor of Sinhala, but it's actually not so.
Well, I am professor of Sinhala, all right. Yeah. But then my expertise is on linguistics. That is, linguistics is a scientific study of language. So we emphasize on the word scientific, because language can be studied from different points of view, from philosophical, from a psychological, from an artistic point of view. But we study from a scientific point of view. That is like all sciences in the natural sciences or whatever sciences. We collect data, analyze in a scientific way, following the scientific method like that. So we take pride in saying we study language, individual languages from a scientific point of view. Of course, then we have another point, that is we study human language as such. Not by studying individual language, we collect data to find out what universals are there in human language. Because wherever, whatever the language, whether in Africa or in Mongolia or whatever part of the world, we all have certain universal qualities of language. Otherwise, you can't use language. Or human beings have certain common properties of language. So we go around the world studying individual languages to find out how much of these are universal. So, because although Sinhala is a specialized language, it shares with all other human languages certain qualities called linguistic universals. So, as in linguistics, we study features or characteristics of human language as well as what we have in Sinhala.
Then, sir, a quick word. You were the founder of a new department then of linguistics. A quick word during your tenure there.
The first course in linguistics, in modern linguistics, was given in Peradeniya. Within the Sinhala department, the first one to be trained in modern linguistics was my own teacher, Professor Sugatapali Silva. He was the first professor of Sinhala here, of linguistics. So I was his direct student at Peradeniya. Then, of course, I went abroad on a Fulbright to study linguistics at the University of California, Berkeley, where I did a master's. So there I was exposed to the American School of Linguistics. You see, there are two schools of linguistics. One is the American school led by Edward Seppi and Bloomfield. Then we have another one in the United Kingdom called the British School, headed by Firth and Halliday. So I had the good fortune of getting myself trained first in the American school at Berkeley. Then after 2 years, after getting my master's, I went to London, University College in London, where I studied under Professor Michael Halliday, who has his own theory of grammar. And so I was lucky. So when I came back, I thought now is high time we set up an autonomous department of linguistics. It was early taught in the language departments.
Talking of your London days, I'd also like to bring you to another achievement, one of your very many. Your days in London also covered, like you said, you had the cross-section of both the American school and English, but you also at SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies, you actually taught Sinhalese to the Englishmen.
Englishmen, German, and who have joined, of course,
a little bit
London,
about
but those who joined the SOAS were not just Englishmen only. There were Africans, there were Germans, you know, from any part of the world, if they want to do it.
You say your description says that very few foreign countries have a chair or sub-department of Sinhala. Then at the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London, at the beginning there was a Sinhala professor teaching there. Later it was taken over by an Englishman, Professor Christopher Reynolds, and thereafter you took over.
No, many others took over after me. No, first Reynolds was there as an Englishman. So he was there for the longest period. Then after his retirement, they kind of the UGC here said we'll devise another way of getting over the problem. Start sending certain Sinhala professors for their sabbatical leave. See, 1 in 7 years, we are entitled to leave, paid leave. So they selected one by one. First Professor Vichayavadana, then Professor Suravira, then myself, like that, one by one. We were sent there and we came back after teaching for a year or so.
So the idea was to teach Sinhalese to other nationalities.
Sinhalese and sometimes Pali.
Right.
To anybody who wants to learn it there.
Right. Then, sir, very quickly, this the time that my producers give me, I wish I could talk with you for the whole day. But, sir, this particular expertise also takes you to Maldives at one time, when you and once again one of your colleagues are invited to decipher this very ancient document on yes.
That's in the that is in the 70s.
Right.
Suddenly we were called by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Vijay Sundar at that time. He said, JB, Vijay, just come here over. So why we got scared when the Vice Chancellor said, come and see me.
This is Maldives? No, in Colombo.
In the Colombo University.
Right.
Just, can we see you? So we got a bit
we've been naughty at the
jerky. So then to say we were introduced to a man, a very short man from the Maldives. He said he's the Director of Information, Mr. Hassan Maniko, and he has with him a document, a photocopy of their oldest historic document, which was called the Low Mafanu, copper plates. He had a photostat. He said Maldivians can't read that. He wants to know whether we can read it. So he showed it. So Vijay and I had a look. Suddenly we were kind of shocked. My God, yes, we can read this. To see it was in old Sri Lankan script. The kind of 8th century Sinhala script, like the Panakadu Tambasanna Savage, the same kind.
Is it similar, sir? Is it?
Yeah, it's Sinhala script. Because it was written in the 12th century. So they were using, even today, they speak Old Sinhala. So their script was Old Sinhala. So we could read it. So they said.
In fact, there are some communities around Berual area, I believe, who speak this something similar to this.
In fact, some Maldivians think that they got Islam from Berual.
Really?
That we had Islam here first, and that they went from Berual to Maldives and spread it there. Whatever that is.
So you went to.
So we were. So they said immediately come over to Maldives. So my own kind of teacher and friend, Professor Hempala Vijayavadana, no more. So we were asked. We went there and spent 2 weeks as state guests, and the document was in the museum. So they brought it and gave it to us in the guest house called
The actual Tambasanna,
Yeah, it's long, 25 sheets of them in Tamba. So then, of course, we, with the help of a few other Maldivians who were there, who knew about their culture, we sat down and within about 1 week we read it, then translated it, and then I think the Asia Foundation gave money to publish it. So, and the Maldives very happy about it. You see, at last they know what was there. It's a land grant. But there are names of lands, their boundaries are given, all that is given there, and the names of kings. So
And it was published thanks to you and Professor.
Yes, then of course once we said, my God, how close Maldivian is to Sinhala. So therefore we said, can we do a kind of survey of modern Divehi? That's the old Divehi. Divehi is the name of the, Divehi Rajya is the name of the country and Divehi is the name of the language. So can we do a study of modern Divehi in all the islands? So thanks to the Toyota Foundation, they gave enough money to hire a ship.
Right.
So for about two months we were on a ship, going from island to island, recording their modern spoken with the other Maldivian researchers. We did a wonderful study of modern Maldivian, the kind of dialectal differences they have. What they say in Malay, in the capital, is quite different what they say in the southern islands like Adduo, Huaduo, Midu, like that.
Right.
So we did some good work on Maldivian.
Yes. Then Maldives and several other countries that we'll be discussing with Professor in a little while in our following segments. But before we go there, sir, in your recent during your recent tenure in Thailand, Ambassador for Sri Lanka, you have a unnamed visitor at your door, a Korean professor.
Yes, one morning my secretary said, sir, there is a Korean professor who has no appointment with you, but insists on seeing you. So I said, okay, being a professor myself, professor always like that. Rather absent-minded too. So he said maybe he knows nothing of these formalities. He wants to be, okay, I said, let him come.
So you actually came to the ambassador's house and you want to see?
No, not the house, embassy.
Right.
Came to the embassy. Normally people come to the embassy to get their visas. Now he didn't come for a visa. He said, I want to meet the ambassador. So very few come to meet the ambassador because I have no personal dealings with anybody who comes to visa. That's done by some other officer.
And this is a Korean, right?
He's a Korean professor coming to see me. I said, okay, let him come. So he came in and said, well, he introduced himself and said, well, I'm a professor. For the last 25 years, I have been going around the world looking for the most creative alphabets in the world in use now. Not the old Egyptian alphabet, dead and gone, not Sumerian, no Babylonian, but the ones in use. What are the most creative ones? He said, I have discovered there's so many, around a dozen. And when I went to India, I discovered India has so many languages, but two main scripts which are creative. One is called Devanagari, which is a script used for Sanskrit and even for modern Hindi. And in the south, you have Dravidian, and the Tamil is the most important script there. So we have two from India. And then I want to cross over to Sri Lanka to find out about the Sinhala script. So I went to the Chennai, the Deputy High Commission, and asked for a visa to go to Sri Lanka. So the Deputy High Commissioner, he was one Mr. Amza. He said, well, I can give you the visa, no problem, but why do you want to go there? He said, I want to meet a scholar to discuss about the Sinhala alphabet. Then he said, well, I can give you the visa to go there, but can I make a suggestion? Why don't you go to Bangkok and meet the ambassador there? So professor said, no, I don't want to meet any, that's not, my purpose is not to meet ambassador, meet a scholar. He said, well, this ambassador is a scholar and he's the best to answer your question. So therefore, that morning he came and saw me. Then he said, now, I said, you think you can make a case for Sinhala? Because he didn't know much about Sinhala.
Being a creative alphabet.
Yeah. Do you think it's a creative alphabet? Can you make a case for it? And if you can make a case, I invite you to come to a conference to be held in Korea, Seoul in 2009. And then you can present a case. There will be a panel of judges, professors from America, from all parts of the world.
I think it was called the Olympics, wasn't it?
Well, he called it the Olympics, but it's called the World Alphabet Conference country. And it was held in October. So I had the privilege of presenting my case for Sinhala, which they ultimately accepted. So now Sinhala alphabet is one of the 16 most creative alphabets in the world, along with Chinese, Mongolian, Japanese, Arabic, Greek, Roman, and other. So I'm very proud that I managed to get Sinhala alphabet there. And now, there we have to prove a case. What are the creative aspects of the Sinhala language? What is it that we have done which others couldn't do? Well, they are on 2 points. One is we have created a set of sounds called half nasals, called Sinhala Sanyaka. Ganga, ළඟ දැස සංඥක ගානක් තියෙනවනේ ග. then you හඳ සුවඳ සංඥක දෑනක් තියෙනවා. අඬ හොඬ සංඥක දෑනක් තියෙනවා. අඹ කොළඹ සංඥක බයන්න අඹ බයන්නක් තියෙනවා. Now those four no other language in the world has. But I want to say within brackets Maldivian has. But Maldivian is all Sinhala.
Yes.
So we were the one who created it, and Sinhalese people moved to Maldives, so they still use those four because they are Sinhalese themselves. So they say for moon Handu, and they say for wife Ambi, like we say Ambu, they say Ambi, and for mangoes they Ambu, like that. So they have it because they speak old Sinhala. But, so that's one count. We created a set of sounds called half nasal, which no other language in the world has. Then we create two characters, two vowel characters called a. So now to write a sound, we are the only alphabet that has two vowel sounds. Now for English has no. English say apple with the a. They say a for apple.
That's right.
We say a for apple. So not only a and a. So by the time they were writing on the Sigri graffiti in the 6th or 8th century, we have used a palmi. The gas like that. So we were taking the pride that we were the first to create the only ones who have a in the alphabet.
And thus we became one of the 16 creative alphabets.
Therefore they said they accepted my reasons, you know, and justify. So now it's so very proud to have. Of course, I did what I did in my book on Akuru Mihira 5. I have a chapter on. I have a chapter on.
But Akuru Mihira is one of the very numerous books that the professor has written, and in this he describes the creativity of the Sinhala language. Well, there you go, folks. I know that time is running out. I've possibly gone a couple of minutes overboard of my first segment, but time flies with Professor JB as it always has. We'll be back after a short break, but before we go there, remember, stay with us. Checkmate tonight is going to be lively or happening, as young people these days say, because there's more to come about our culture, our glorious past, our kings, our kingdoms, and the Sinhala race. So don't go away. We'll be back after a very short break. Hello and welcome back to Checkmate. We're in the privileged company tonight of Deshmani, Professor J.B. Dissanayaka, and with him time flies. So I'm going to very quickly get on to the subject at hand. Sir, we'd like to talk a little bit about, once again, one of your expert areas, Sinhala, the Sinhalese, our culture, our heritage. In an article published under the title, Are the Sinhalese Really Racially Prejudiced?, which quotes a statement from you also, this is what you say. Professor J.B. Dissanayaka of the Department of Sinhala in the Colombo University appears to have the answer to the question then. You say, understanding the Sinhalese, one has to learn to decode Sinhala culture, to understand the contradictions, the paradoxes, and other strange ways of behavior of the Sinhalese. Culture communicates, you say, through a silent language. In Sinhala culture, more than words, deeds are used to communicate. You want to elaborate a little bit?
You see, culture communicates. Now, normally we say language communicates. To communicate, we use language, but on the whole, not only language, but the entire culture communicates. What you dress, you know, the where you stay, you know, all communicate something. So therefore, to understand the Sinhalese, you have to study their culture. That is true. You have to decode the cultural element, what it says. So how we behave at the temple, how we behave at the sea, kind of some beaches or whatever it is, what we do. So what we do, what we say, it has to be decoded to find out our way of thinking.
You say, you put this very nicely. You say a genuine smile or a gentle bow of the head of a Sinhalese says much more than.
But an Englishman, when you meet an Englishman in the morning, he would say good morning. But we hardly say good morning. Of course, now we can say Subho Dasanak Viva, but no one naturally says so. But when you meet somebody, say for the first time in the morning, we might use something else, not that particular good morning. You say, කොහෙද යන්නේ? කොහොමද? So you say කොහෙද යන්නේ, and the answer is ළඟට. Wherever you go, he's not really keen on finding out where you are going. You want to break the silence. I'm meeting you for the first time for the day. So to keep the channels of communication open for the rest of the day, I must say something. If I don't say that, you go wondering why the
Why
hell
he did not start talking.
not in say that. So they are just
Yeah.
for communication. I must say that.
Then, sir,
Keep our goodwill.
Yeah. Then going to Thailand,
Yes.
you don't take teapex and caparison elephants, but you take your faculties of knowledge. You write your own book, Lanka, the Land of Kings. I recommend this to anyone because I did my very quick academic reading to get ready for this interview. But the manifestation of our culture, of our history, is amazing exposition of the professor's capability. Sir, dedication itself, you're dedicating it to your little granddaughter Suvinya, Mihihasani and Savera. Mithahasini and Savera. You also, I'd like to know why you say, who will take into the global village the message of the Dhammika Raja or the righteous king? What made you dedicate it this?
One thing, so now we will not be living for all time. So there are new generation taking over from us. So my grandchildren will replace me someday. So that's the world, So now what will they take to the global village? I thought the best of the essence or the best of our culture. So the best of our culture is the fact that we still believe in good governance. So the good governance is the product or done by the righteous king called Dhammika Raja in
We will come to that in a minute.
Yeah.
We'll come to that in a minute.
So therefore I thought they should know who a good king is, how our kings ruled our kingdom and what they have done for the people, the best they have done for the people.
And
so
then commenting on the last king of Sri Lanka,
Sri Vikramarajasinghe.
He was of Nayakas in India, but something that catches the eye of the reader, sir, in this. You very succinctly put it, the last stanza that he said, which brings pride in anyone who reads of our culture. Vikum Sihala Parapura Sihi Tibenaturu, Utum Raja Letika Mage Tibenaturu, Neting Kandulu Nuharimi Dive Tibenaturu, Iting Ayuboan Lakmawani Garu.
So kind of he was taken from Sri Lanka to South India to Vellore for him to die in exile. That's what the English did. And on his, so this whether he actually said this or not, we don't know. But this part of our folk heritage. We say on his way he had a look at Sri Lanka. He had love for Sri Lanka and said, "Iting I buan love." So Mother Lanka, goodbye. I'm going for good. So that's So now
from the heart.
And he is Sri Lankan, but he was not Sinhalese. That's different. He's a Nayaka king.
From the Nayaka pedigree.
Pedigree, which goes back to India, and he was a Hindu by birth, I think. Of course, then he got converted by Buddhism, and he learned Sinhala so that he could say, he could say it in Sinhala, right? Yeah. So he did that. He was in there, and his prime minister, Ahalepola, was in the Mauritius, so that they couldn't get together. The English feared if Ahalepola was also sent to South India, they might get together and create another revolt.
Yes.
So he was
then
in Mauritius.
very quickly. Now we are almost at the advent of depending on when we play this, another Independence Day, and every Independence Day, ever since we were children, I'm sure ever since you were a child, we've heard this being sung. Devo Vasatu Kalena. You make a particular point in putting this in your book. Devo Vasatu Kalena Sassa Sampatti Hetuka. And you make this point that in your English translation, may God give the rain in due season, may the crops be bountiful, may the people be joyous.